So we got Colin to play his bass as promised. And if I would have let this man here for another hour or so strumming away, he would have came up with a complete song, I'm sure of it. We took the nervousness out of him. He did not want to do that live. You should all feel privileged that he came in here to do that. We have a short amount of time with Colin, so we're going to go straight into the podcast. But as promised, we got him here on his bass, and we'll have him back for sure, hopefully with more time, and we could do some more things. People really like what you did there. I got some applause. We got some, sounds good to me.
We got go Colin, we got claps.
It's pretty good, man. All that nervousness, and it was for nothing.
You just got to get him out of his shell. Yeah, we got to get you out of your shell. That's what it is.
Oh, let me get your mic up.
I got to stand for your bass over here if you want. Hold on. Let me put that on mute real quick. Don't thank us for the encouragement there, Colin. Thank yourself. Showing great bravery. Yeah, I would like to thank me first and foremost. Wait. You say that on the, put your headphones, don't you go to material. I don't like it when you waste material, Colin. Check. My ears. Can you turn me up just a
little bit?
Yeah, did you happen to turn it down or something? I don't know. Check. Oh, whoa. Ha. Yeah, there we go.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello? Hi? I can hear myself just... Okay, yeah, that's better.
There you go. And then swing your ass on around here next to me a little bit. I don't bite. There we go. That looks good.
All right. You can go ahead and... what were you saying? I'm going to get this chat up.
Well, I was saying... First, I was like, I think the sparked it was like, I like to thank myself first and foremost. And then Colin says something about Little Richard.
At the Grammys in 1988, I believe, he was presenting the Best New Artist Award, but just before he did, he was like, and the Best New Artist goes to me.
Yeah. Confidence.
You know what's funny about this?
Was he, wait, hold on. Was he aggressive when he said it like that?
Oh, yeah, but
Yeah.
just kind of a ever so slight tone of resentment
Right.
that, he had been around for decades and had influenced so many people and is, sometimes known as the godfather of rock and roll.
Yeah.
And he's never been awarded a single Grammy, never got any
what?
recognition
Are
from
you
that
serious?
institution.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. You know what the synchronicity is behind this is, and let me know if you guys are okay. I think the wife was watching it with me. We were watching a trailer to a documentary for how Led Zeppelin started. And on the trailer for this, the first image and musical was with Little Richard and his band. And Led Zeppelin were speaking about how when they heard Little Richard and saw him perform for the first time, that's when they knew they wanted to form a band called Led Zeppelin.
So wait, hold on.
It was because
you're
of Little
telling
Richard.
me Little Richard
was
inspired
a big influence
on Led Zeppelin.
That's what I'm telling you.
Well, not only that, but Jimi Hendrix said that he also wanted to model his guitar style after Little Richard's voice.
Whoa.
Yeah. Little Richard, I guess society put him under the radar for, I don't know what the reason could have been, but it seems like a lot of people that I didn't know found huge inspiration in Little Richard.
From a tutti frutti.
Prince was also one that found inspiration from Little Richard.
Well, I mean, the thing to also keep in mind is that, and this is something I learned way back in my social history of rock and roll class. It was an elective course that I took in college. Little Richard had recorded Tutti Frutti, as we all know, but Pat Boone did a cover version of that. You could probably guess which one sold more records.
Which one?
Pat Boone,
Oh,
unfortunately.
wow. Oh, wow.
Because when you're listening to the two side by side, I mean, Little Richard's rendition has so much life and vitality to it, but then Pat Boone comes along and just kind of takes a more sanitized approach to it, and it's not nearly as interesting to listen to. Little Richard gets into it, he's all like, Tutti Frutti, oh, Rudy, ooh.
Yeah.
But, when you get to Pat Boone's version, he's like, Tutti Frutti, oh, Rudy, oh, Tutti Frutti.
It's just very monotone.
shit.
There was no charisma behind it.
Very much so.
Why do you think that is? What's your opinion on why that is?
I can only assume that they, sanitized it to make it more palatable to a white audience.
A
as
white
me-
audience.
Well, I mean, just as
Yeah.
a means of trying to move as many records as possible.
So you would take a black man's work and you would dumb it down to basically no goddamn rhythm at all, just to appease your white audience.
Well, just to market, I guess it would be
I was
just.
trying to be funny, but you're like, yeah.
Well, I mean, that
yeah.
is kind of the truth.
Well, I mean,
actually.
there, you see, there are even jokes have some truth to it.
Well, the funniest jokes do have a lot of truth to
Yeah,
them.
that's true. Ask Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy, I suppose. George Carlin, all the greats.
Yeah. I guess too, we were living in a different time, right?
Yeah, I guess
so-
this is definitely the 50s, the Eisenhower epoch.
And I guess it would be taboo if any white person back then was caught in like a juke joint or a place of color where there was a whole different style of music being played. And if there was something loved about that style, I would guess the next best thing to do to make it marketable or to take a genre outside of that culture is to kind of dumb it down and bring it into the white population the best way they can
Without it being
too
jungle music.
rambunctious, right?
Isn't that how Elvis got started, right? He would go into these Baptist church.
Well, yeah, he certainly took a lot of influence from the Baptist church and their lively performances. And I mean, the first song that he ever did, That's All Right, was done by Arthur Crudup, who was a black guy.
Mm-hmm. So you think that's ultimately what made Elvis Elvis?
Well, I mean, there's certainly something to be said for his, inclination to, culturally appropriate a lot of black material and then just kind of make it his own. And then by the time it reaches the mass market, the record buying market, that's when people are like, oh, wow, I've never heard this before. This sounds so new and fresh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it might have been something that's been around for a while, but most people probably just didn't know about it until Elvis did it.
So what about you were saying something about President Nixon then? Like, was he an influence on how music was distributed?
Well, I don't know about President Nixon per se. I mean, who knows what kind of music Nixon might have dug, but there was actually a picture of Elvis meeting Nixon at the White House in the Oval Office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. There was a few questions we wanted to ask you, and we just didn't have time on part one. So let's get to it without wasting too much time.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to hip hop? Okay. I don't want to word it like that.
That was just
I
straight
don't
out
wanna
the
word it like
holster,
that.
firing off the hip and holding somebody like at gunpoint. Like, where's my money, bitch?
That was
crazy as hell.
And it offered no context.
Gee.
Let me reword this. I'm a hip hop fan. I'm more so a hip hop fan from in which it originally derived from. The roots of hip hop, the origins of hip hop. And I'm a huge 90s hip hop fan, late 80s, all the way through the 90s and early 2000s. To me, that was hip hop. It wasn't so much based on materialism. It wasn't based on watching women's booty bounce all over the place.
Essentially, we like the bling era of hip hop,
Right.
The mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. What happened to the true art form? And when I say that, I remember like the break dancing, the graffiti on trains and walls and murals and art. Because I used to be a graffiti artist. He used to do some graffiti too. And that was hip hop to us. It was like it was not rebellious, but it was an expression of art and color. And these protagonists that we wanted to live through. Like the Jizza Genius had a great protagonist. The RZA has a great protagonist, or not protagonist, persona, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And we all wanted to live through these personas and create these fictional characters that identify with us. That was hip hop, where MC had to have an original sound, where if you bit off that person, you was a whack MC, you was a sucker MC. in your mind, in Colin's mind, what happened to the art form?
I mean, there's still a lot of great hip hop being released today. However, I will say that there's that saying, pop will eat itself, in the sense that there's, especially in recent years, there's been a lot of rap songs, particularly, that are just more or less remakes of older songs, or interpolations of older songs. Like, just throwing this out there as an example, I think it was like Coi Leray who did a song that, did like this remake of Leslie Gore's "It's My Party." It's my I feel weird saying this, but it's my body, I'ma fuck who I want to, fuck who I want to. Just something like that. And it just strikes me as just really lazy, really uncreative. And, in times like that, I just have to wonder, like, have we finally gone through all the permutations of beats and, lyrical ideas over the years to where we're just kind of cannibalizing older
That's
older
fascinating.
songs?
So you think we've kind of reached this pinnacle, or this, like, we kind of got to this precipice where it's
It certainly seems that way. I mean, you still have other artists out there, like that Billy Woods guy that I had mentioned to you, who is doing more abstract stuff with his lyrics, with his beat choices and all. You also have people like Kendrick Lamar, who, even though his #1 single Luther right now is it's more or less a remake of a Luther Vandross single from way back when that you did with like Cheryl Lynn, I think it was. I mean, it's a great song, but he's still kind of putting his own unique spin on it.
Would you consider a rapper like Kendrick Lamar a product of what hip hop should have continued to be, but in a new form?
I definitely find his material to be more authentic than most. I mean, going back to last year's Kendrick versus Drake beef, I think Kendrick threw out the barb that, he makes music that inspires people, whereas Drake makes the kind of music that pacifies.
So
that is not an understatement.
That's not I'm right with you. I would consider Drake to be like a disease in the rap culture. Like, to me, that ain't hip hop at all.
He's definitely a lot more pop oriented, more pop focused. A lot of his stuff really does seem to be designed to top the Billboard charts whenever he puts out like his next 25 song album out. Because I mean, ever since that feud, I mean, he's been relatively quiet. I mean, he's at least put out that one Nokia single, but it definitely didn't do the numbers that you would kind of expect from a Drake single.
Yeah, to me, it's not conscious. To me, it offers no substance.
Exactly.
He doesn't rap about how to make life for you and your family better. He doesn't rap about community and education. He doesn't rap about how not to go down a path in which he may or may not have grew up, in. He doesn't rap about betterment in society. He doesn't rap about how segregation is ultimately killing us. He doesn't rap about the media is destroying us and we're destroying ourselves from it.
Because he is part of the media.
Because he's part of the media.
But wouldn't it all come back? He's rapping about what he wants to rap about. You know what I mean?
Right. But
let me close these curtains, because the contrast is like so bright.
And that's what I thought about. In my mind, hip hop was supposed to be, not even in my mind. If you asked a lot of people, like Viral Beats, I Am the One Son, even Reconsiderate Sketchpad. These are people you need to check out. You have no idea about these people, but I'm sure they all know. And I've talked to them enough to kind of say this. It needs to be something you need to learn from. It needs to be something you should appreciate in life. You shouldn't go into hip hop getting a bunch of negative bullshit thrown at you. because that's not what the origins, the creators wanted it from it. They wanted black males specifically to express themselves and not to go down these wicked paths and learn from their mistakes, you know? And it's like the jungle sometimes. It makes you wonder how I keep from going under, right? Why would a man say that if he didn't want you to think as he was thinking on how not to get close to the edge? I'm trying not to
lose my head.
Right? I mean, these Kumo D.
Yeah.
Kumo D was another one.
But
the Wild Wild West.
It all goes back to
why did we go down this path? It's like
hold on. Let me get my train of thought. Back when jazz very first started, and you had like these trios and you had these big bands, and all the jazz artists would try to encourage black musicians to pick up an instrument, play music, express yourself that way. And then jazz got kind of washed away when blues came on the scene, right? It was still a part of jazz, but blues had started making its rebellious, the real life funk of things. This is what I'm going through. This is what it is.
Right. Yeah.
And when I look back at jazz and seeing how blues came in, and now instead of just being so much instrumental, now the culture was being boisterous by saying, I'm going out to the juke joint, I'm doing all this. And then hip hop comes around years later, and it's derived from the storytelling of blues, right? But this time the founders of hip hop were pushing a narrative of, like my brother was saying, you don't have to be this way. You don't just learn from me, do this. And so as music evolves,
take the torch further than what I've brought it to you.
But so does the human mind. And so kids, they look at that and they saw hip hop, the cool beats. And then somebody started putting women in the videos. And then the women started getting less and less clothed, more and more skimpy. And then cars came into the video, and then you can start to see this evolution of the mind state
and degrading the women too.
And this is where this is where hip hop branched off. You had those trying to keep it to what it was, but then you also had the young minds trying to push it to where they think it's going to go. And it's the same thing when your dad or your parents told you, stay out of the streets, don't do this, don't do as I did, you're fucking up. Knock it off.
Be home before the street lights come on.
But as a kid, you're not listening.
Right.
You don't want to listen.
Yeah.
So you'll take the music and you'll do what a young mind would do.
And emulate what you see.
And emulate what you see. And that's why we have so many different branches of hip hop.
Right.
That's why conscious hip hop is still conscious. That's why trap now is trap. That's why
gangster rap
is gangster rap. It's come to the point now where hip hop is taking on just the individual self of those who are fortunate enough to be that media of hip hop.
So I mean, here we are then. Is there such thing? Okay. I think there needs to be an understanding. Hip hop to me is conscious. It's evolving. It's I hand you the torch, you take it further and make it brighter. Gangster rap is that. Gangster rap. It's not hip hop. It's gangster rap. Don't even tie it to hip hop. Trap music. That's what it is. It's its own genre. Trap music. It may have some things that came from hip hop.
Mumble rap.
Rap. And, I think that's you laugh because you know it's bullshit, Colin. At least I like to think you know it's bullshit.
Well, I mean, especially when it comes to the mumble rap stuff. I struggle to think of even just one mumble rapper that was just kind of worth a damn. I mean, you can correct me on that if you'd like, but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess an example just pulling it out the ether of my consciousness, like somebody like Lil Xan.
I don't even know
Don't
who
even
it
know who
is.
that is.
Okay, it's probably for the best that you
Yeah.
don't. But yeah, he really only ever put out like maybe one album in 2018, and then nobody really ever heard from him ever again. But probably for the best too, because I mean, it seemed like he couldn't really even commit more than just one sentence worth of material to memory, enough to like string it out for an actual song. I mean, I even kind of struggle to think of other mumble. Well, okay, I don't know if you guys would put like Future in with the mumble
Future?
rappers, because I mean, I find them just really unintelligible most
Yeah,
of the
and-
time.
Yeah.
Okay, to me, I'm gonna make this easy, so I know we all on the same page. Give me one artist you find really thought provoking as a hip hop artist.
Well, I mean, the first one who indeed comes to mind would indeed be Kendrick Lamar. I
Well,
mean,
there you go, right there.
he put out To Pimp a Butterfly. I mean, there's
And he can
it's just such a
articulate.
dense album.
Yes, yeah,
So much to unpack within all of its 78, 79 minutes.
right. And why is it so much to unpack? Go ahead, keep proving my point.
Well, because each song is about something, and it all ties in with the whole experience that he wants you to have out of that album. I mean, a lot of it has to deal with like survivor's guilt, maybe even just a little bit of imposter syndrome. Trying to like go through the trauma that he had experienced in his childhood and teen years, trying to just kind of make sense of it as an adult.
Some substance there for you, right?
Absolutely. And I think that's why it's resonated with people over the years. I mean, that album is now 10 years old, and I still sell it all the time like clockwork.
Right.
And I mean, maybe even more often than not, it's to younger kids,
Right.
like the Zoomer generation.
Oh, that's even better, right?
Oh,
For them
absolutely.
to take that message, he's even bringing gangs together in communities.
Well, yeah, I mean the Not Like Us.
The Not Like
single,
Us, right.
I mean,
Yeah.
he's essentially trying to get the war and Gates together, be like, no, you guys aren't enemies of each other. The pop establishment is kind of your real enemy.
Right.
The Drakes of the world who just want to just put forth a bunch of crap.
Bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think? I know viral beats don't like this question. You think hip hop is dead in many ways?
No.
Okay.
I really don't think so. I mean, there's always going to be at least a fair percentage of rappers out there who do actually want to make their mark on the world, that do actually want to put forth something significant that's really going to last beyond just its release date. There's always going to be rappers who have stories to tell, unique experiences to share with an audience, taking extraordinarily complex feelings, emotions, ideas, and boiling them down to their basic elements. I mean, that in and of itself is a sign of genius if you can do that.
Right.
Because anybody can make the simple complicated, but doing the exact opposite of it, I mean, that takes incredible mental agility,
Right.
mental clarity, mental fortitude.
Okay.
And it'd be humble.
And to be humble, let me ask you this, Colin. Let me ask you this. You think negative hip hop is mental warfare on poverty? Could it be looked at as mental warfare?
Like just the negative hip
The
hop.
negative hip hop.
So are we talking about like, say, gangster rap specifically?
Gangster, materialism, mumble, bullshit.
Yeah, because definitely with gangster rap in particular. I mean, because I love the Chronic, 2001, and all that. I mean, I've always been able to do without the degree of misogyny that's in it.
Right.
Because I'm guessing that people like Dre and Snoop are rapping about the women that they knew who used men for money, sex, whatever. They certainly exist, but it's just that when they're coming up with a bunch of blanket statements, and just kind of making it pervasive. throughout their music. I mean, I do view that as destructive to some degree because a young impressionable person who hears that is probably going to be influenced to treat women not as nearly as well as what they deserve.
Right.
So is that the reason why the states, or who would you point the finger at? Is this the reason why they keep playing this shit on the radio waves? Is that the goal? If not, why else? Why would you have this keep pumping through the radio waves?
I mean, certainly some of the songs are incredibly catchy. I mean, if we're talking about like the Chronic specifically, I mean, the production on it is just immaculate, and it stood up to the test of time.
Yes, it has.
Right.
I will tell you that.
But more so, that's a phase in life, right?
It's a phase, but
It's a phase, and I guess
but kids still hear that now, and
it's
they love
subjective, right? It's
Yeah.
very subjective.
Yeah.
But why keep the negative music going over the conscious and positive music? Do you think it's mental warfare?
As far as on the airwaves.
As far as on the airwaves?
I mean, it might be easier to fall into a negative mindset than it is to, buy into something that's a lot more positive. Hearing something that actually, it's a reflection of our reality, but it at least puts a more optimistic spin on it. Like, these bad times, these bad thoughts, these bad people, they're not going to last forever. There's always going to be that sort of optimism that really propels people to do better in their own lives.
No, you're good.
No, you're good. Yeah.
To me, I'm still a proponent of a young mind is easily influenced. You're like a sponge in your younger years, and without the proper household, maybe like you were born by yourself, no siblings, or without the proper influence, you are subject to the radio waves or your environment. I was driving the neighborhood around here, and it's a predominantly white neighborhood, very nice neighborhood. I was just curious. I never saw it before. It's right here off of, right there by the nursing home. And I went down the neighborhood, and there was these two, they had to have been like 9, 10 years old, white girls, and they're outside playing trap music really loud and dancing in the street. And I thought to myself, wow, it's come a long way.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That used to be never a thing, but then you find out in the middle of Indiana in the late 90s, early 90s, gin and juice was a hit in the suburbs. Right? You had all these white kids going outside talking about drinking gin and juice, laid back,
Right.
with my mind on my money and my money on my mind. And they don't have any of those struggles there.
They don't know what it's like.
They don't
to
know
be-
what it's like.
Right.
But yet the music has reached that far. You know what I mean? So that's when you got to say it's just when you're young at mind, you're easily influenced. Now that we're older and we're able to look at it, we're able to listen to lyrics. If you can understand lyrics, you can say, "Oh, this is what they're talking about." Like I've gone back and listened to some of the old shit that I listened to and went, "The fuck was I into?"
Well, I've always loved it whenever rappers actually make it a point to put their lyrics in with the liner notes of the album, so I
Right.
can actually like follow along to it, because there are times where I'm just kind of phonetically challenged, and I kind of have this. It's kind of easy for me to misinterpret certain lyrics, but if it's something that I can like follow along to, then I get more out of it. I mean, I guess that's what Genius.com is for. I found that just an incredibly helpful resource. I mean, because hip hop is very much a language of its own, and me not really growing up around that for the majority of my life, I'm not used to certain terminology, so that by the time I come across a bar that just kind of makes me scratch my head, Genius.com comes in place where I can just click on that bar and they'll have an interpretation of it for me. I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that makes a lot more sense.
So Genius.com can understand mumble rap is what you're saying.
Well, to a certain degree.
So
Sure.
you need a computer
Well, I mean-
analytical mind to analyze, or what is it to
Analyze.
mumble rap. Yeah, just say yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
to a degree, yeah.
God
And I mean,
bless.
sometimes even the artists themselves will annotate their own lyrics on Genius.com, which makes it even better.
Yeah. What do you think the major turnoff to hip hop is amongst other people who have issues with hip hop?
I mean, just in the example of my own parents, I mean, I've tried to kind of wean them onto hip hop throughout the years. I mean, especially since they've, expanded my own horizons as far as like rock music goes. Their hurdle has always been like, the profanity in it, and, the overuse of the N-word, especially. I mean, that just kind of really turns them off on that. But from time to time, I'll play them something where they're like, well, I mean, musically that was great, but I could have done without this, that, and the other lyric. So I mean, just in a broader context, there are just people who get really turned off by profanity, the N-word. I can't necessarily say I blame them, but at the same time, there are certainly worse atrocities going on in the world than just dropping an F-bomb every so often.
God, I wish we could play Naka.
Yeah.
Now that he brought that up.
I mean, we can play it, but we have to play it as if we're doing a reaction to it. Yeah. So I could text that to her. I think hip hop is a very long discussion, and we can go down so many different avenues with it. Give me some more of your favorite artists.
Just in general?
Just in general.
Well,
we'll go tit for tat.
Okay. Well, Nine Inch Nails definitely is one of my biggest inspirations and influences in terms of how I really listen to music and enjoy music. The Fragile especially is just such a powerhouse of an album, and the production on it is just utterly fantastic. Like, because Trent Reznor worked on that album for a little over 2 years, and you can really tell. I mean, he really poured himself into it, and even though he wasn't really in the most focused mindset, or at least he was struggling with his own addictions to alcohol and cocaine at the time, so he did
Wait. Are you classifying Nine Inch Nails as hip hop?
Well, no. Not.
Okay, I was talking about hip hop artists.
Hip-hop.
You went into Nine Inch Nails.
Okay,
I'm like,
I'm sorry.
The
I'm sorry.
fuck does this have to do?
I'm sorry.
Miss something?
But
wait. Now I want to hear. Now I want to hear the story.
Now,
Go ahead.
In terms of rap and hip hop,
And I want to do. Wait, finish the Trent Reznor thing. Damn it. Go ahead. Sorry.
well, essentially wrapping up my point about the Fragile, he was struggling with his own addictions at the time, so he said that an unimaginable amount of effort went into that record in a very unfocused way, but you would never know it because, I mean, it's just such a seamless whole. I mean, that hour and 45-minute long experience, it just flows together so well, and it really does seem like a very cinematic experience. But going back to rap and hip hop, definitely my favorite group of all time is a Tribe Called Quest.
Tribe Called Quest.
What a solid group.
Good God, you
I mean,
did
even
go there.
just from the very start of their career, that very first album, People's Instinctive Travels and Paths of Rhythm in 1990. I mean, they were already fully formed by then.
Yeah.
I mean, they definitely already had their own distinct style, and considering what else was really popular in hip hop around that time, I mean, hardly anybody sounded like them at all.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go next. Since you went with Tribe Called Quest, I would have to say the Roots band.
Yes.
That Blue Tape was, I believe, the first thing they ever released, right?
Because I'm pedantic like that, I think it was actually their second album, because that was from 95. They put out something in 93. I forget what it's called. But yeah, you're right. That Blue album, Do You Want More?
Do You Want More? Yeah. Oh,
amazing record.
God.
All right. Well, let me just get mine out there real quick. And it's not even quick because you guys got some great, but mine is going to always have to be High Road, Souls of Mischief. So's the Mischief.
Oh yeah,
for me.
93 till infinity.
Infinity, yeah.
And it wasn't
yeah.
just there. It was casual. It was Dale. It was like the Dungeon Family for Outkast and Goody Mo B. It's just
Yeah.
So's the Mischief.
The Alcoholics
for me
crew was part
was
of it.
just badass.
Yeah.
A plus, Opio. I mean, it was a foundation
Tajay,
of
yeah.
They had powerhouses all over.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, but when you got people like Deltron coming out of, you know what I'm saying? And it's just
Yeah, Del the funky Homo sapien.
yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. A lot came out of Oakland in that time. And I think those guys gave a good look at what West Coast hip hop sounded like. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then after them,
Well, also the Far Side for
the
West
Far
Coast.
Side too.
Yes.
Like the Far Side was very, very what's the word? They were very whimsical, storytelling driven
Yeah.
group, you know? Every time I listened to a Far Side album, they had the ability to take you with them,
Yeah, tell you good stories.
tell you a good
they were
story.
very good at storytelling.
Mhm.
They
Like
had
she,
a great sense of humor too.
Great
Yeah,
sense of humor.
Yeah, Fat Lip was especially
Yeah.
funny.
And your mama.
yeah.
Your mama's so fat.
How fat is she? She can get down with the burger or something. I don't know. But they grew up near us. A lot of them grew up in Carson, California,
Yeah.
where we were originally from.
Your mama got a glass eye with a fish in it.
Your mama, your mama, your mama. And then Jurassic 5 came out.
Oh, Charlie
know?
Tuna.
And Charlie Tuna is my favorite rapper of all time, next to Stickman and Killer Priest. But Charlie Tuna will forever be my favorite MC, just because of his voice and his soulfulness. And his dad was into blues, and and he's always about the community. Yeah, he knows the streets, but he surpassed that, and it's just a beautiful fucking MC. But when Jurassic 5 came out, that led me to Razzcast. Do you know about Razzcast?
He was part of. Was he a solo artist or what?
Yeah, he started off as a solo artist,
And then did he become part of a group?
yeah, I think they were what they did something called Helter Skelter or
I'm not sure.
Viral Beats. Was Razzcast a part of Helter Skelter?
And Viral says Dale is my number one.
Yeah, Viral Beats. We know Dale is a number one. Like the MCs of Oakland just did something to people. Like it put the West Coast. People would say Ice-T and Ice Cube, or gangster rap put the West Coast on, like Tupac. Nah, yeah, Tupac when he was with Digital Underground was a good Tupac.
Right.
Tupac when he went to Death Row was a semi good Tupac.
He was so up and down. I mean, before Death Row, he would write jams like Brenda's Got a Baby, and he would tell like this awesome tale of this young girl who had a baby as an adolescent, ended up losing the baby, but like that was the life of the streets, and no one really even gave a shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very emotionally heavy song, and his lyricism puts a lot of vivid detail into your mind when you're listening to it.
Right.
Yeah.
But
Your
then-
mind's eye.
Your mind's eye. Yeah.
But then he'll go and make a song called Hit 'Em Up. You know what I mean? It's just like you got so many different contrasts from Pac.
Yeah.
And I know he was doing his job as far as educating the masses, but
But he came from a very militant background
Yeah.
too. His dad was in the Black Panthers
Right.
and was a activist in many different ways.
Well, if I could hop on to Kendrick Lamar again just briefly.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Especially as it pertains to the Kendrick Drake beef from last year. I mean, given how much of a conscious artist he is, and I mean, the dude's even won a Pulitzer Prize. I mean, you would kind of think that something like that would almost be kind of beneath him in a way, like because I can only assume that the beef was probably as commercially successful as it was is because 2023 wasn't really a great year for hip hop, like commercially. So I guess he felt the need to kind of clap back on that whole oh, the fuck the big three? It's just big me.
Right. Yeah.
Him kind of taking offense to something that wasn't really even an insult in the first place. I mean, it is very. I would be very curious to know why he took so much offense to that and decided to go off on this beef with a couple of professional rivals. Because, like I said, I mean, the guy, he's definitely trying to put forth some good in the world. I just don't really understand. I mean, I enjoyed the beef, don't get me wrong. It's just that I don't really understand what his motivation was.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cress had said, for people who don't know, death row doesn't mean he was arrested and in prison. They mean Death Row Records as a record company. Not everyone knows. Just saying that for those who didn't. I think that's important to know, like, and that goes back into context with hip hop, right? A lot of people haven't lived the life that they so-called rap about. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about someone portraying something they hadn't actually lived, or they like to use analogies in these weird
syndrome.
ways that makes it seem like they've done that?
I don't know. I mean, I hate to punch down on Drake again, but I mean,
Let's punch his ass down, because I'm with you. Go ahead. If you got to use him, use him.
Dude is from the suburbs of Canada.
He's our George Floyd for sure. Let's go.
Okay. Well, because I don't really know all that much about the guy's personal life. I mean, because there's that one Pusha T song where he talks about, parading around his father because he felt like he wasn't black enough. And also Kendrick is saying that, I hate the way that you use the N-word in your songs too. I mean, I don't know, a joke that I kept hearing online was that, Drake could very well be the first black person who's canceled for cultural appropriation.
Right, yeah.
So he's not even looked at as the same.
Not
in the
really,
culture.
no.
No, he's not.
I mean, I'd be very curious to know, when he does finally release a new album, how it's going to do commercially. I mean, has this beef, woken people up to the fact that, he's just kind of like this poser who has long since run out of interesting things to say?
Yeah.
Because early on in his career, I mean, he was actually compelling to the degree that, he recognized that, he sometimes a douchebag to women, but he wanted to actively stop that behavior. But in recent years, it just seems like he is just that douchebag.
Yeah,
now.
Lord Jamar from the Brand Nubians.
Yeah.
He was on a YouTube channel speaking about Drake and how he thought Drake is not hip hop. And they tried to bash Lord Jamal for this. And he was dead on. He said he's pop music. He's something that is a fluke in many ways, to paraphrase what he was going on about. And he's okay knowing he's not from the culture. He's okay knowing he's not about what the culture is supposed to represent. And he still goes through with it. That's something to be said about an individual, right?
Yeah, and I mean, especially in the songs where Drake is just being shitty to women, like that one song he did, "Slime You Out" with SZA. I mean, even within the first 20 seconds of the song, I immediately just want to turn it off because he's talking about how these younger girls that he's dating are immature. He has to teach them what fork to use with which food. It's like, I don't care about this.
Right.
I got two comments that need to get out there. Tone Smith first says that that's just art, though, isn't it? And then Andy Fireblade Music says songwriters use lyrics about things they haven't experienced all the time, just like artists paint things they have never seen. And I guess I'm with him on that. It's all art form. The only thing that
It's how you sell it.
The only thing that gets me is if you out there and those young minds are at your or at your platform, and you're preaching how to degrade women and how not to be just at least a contributor of your society and better yourself
and have accountability.
I think that shows you are accountable for some fragile minds thinking they can go out there and do dumb shit. I never looked at a Rembrandt painting, even if it was horrible, nightmarish, and go, oh, I'm going to go out there and mistreat women and go stab a motherfucker real quick because this painting says this to me.
Right.
I think there's some responsibility.
Not to say that it's not subjective.
Right, but I think there's some responsibility that needs to be adhered to when you have such a big platform that can easily influence the minds. And
Yes.
in case in point, Fox News and CNN, and it does this to the adult mind, where people are weighed heavily biased against each other.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I don't know what it is about, just planting yourself in front of, network news like that, but I mean, it definitely colors your worldview on just everybody. And I mean, I can only imagine that something like that it breeds a lot of mistrust within your fellow man. I mean, I only follow news to the degree that, I get like the most important stuff on like my Facebook feed. Otherwise, I don't really seek it out myself because a lot of it is just so negative.
Right.
And I just don't really need to put myself in that mindset. I would like to believe that, whoever comes into my store could very well be a good person worth getting to know. Shit, where was I going with that?
Back to the hip hop thing on how it's portrayed.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it really does just come down to, the individual audience member and how they might have been raised, what kind of environment they grew up in, what their parents were like, and what they instilled in their own child. Because, this was a huge thing in the 90s. There were a lot of congressional hearings about, the negative influence of like gangster rap on the youth. Talking about like, loading up a Tech 9 and, going out and shooting a motherfucker or something. Most people are not going to do that. You already have to, have that hatred within you, that mental disease that, you listen to a Dr. Dre song and you just kind of mistakenly think, oh, well, that's okay for me to do, when it's obviously not.
But and back to Tone and Andy's point, I mean, it really is. It's just us, right? The three of us, like right now, per se. It's just how we view the material,
Right.
And what we believe should not be imprinted on the masses, right? Because it's just totally our opinion.
Yeah, but Tone was also saying like hip hop transitioned into pop culture a long time ago.
Oh, that ain't the fucking truth. A
He's-
lot of
he-
it.
he's not lying.
So, at what point in history do you think hip hop finally became part of pop?
Oh, me personally, or you want to ask Tone?
Tone, answer that question. Present the question again.
Well, okay. To reiterate, at what point in rap and hip hop's illustrious history did it finally become part of like the mainstream popular culture? Like, was it way back in the MC Hammer days of the very early 90s?
Wow, he left a very short window. He said 1990 to 1993.
Whoa.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with it per se. I'm gonna go a little bit later.
But he's close.
You're close. I'm gonna go with 1990 to 1998. It's the big, big transition.
That sounds about right.
Well, yeah, because Outkast kept a lot of shit alive for me. Dungeon Family kept a lot of shit alive. But
Yes.
I would have to be remiss that Tone is really, he's right there for me. That's close enough for me. So because you got to think those were the golden years, right? That's when everything that was dope was coming out.
I think too. And this is not off topic. It's probably hand in hand. When our government and the CIA were distributing crack cocaine in the streets, there was an agenda for that. When they were distributing LSD into the streets, there was an agenda for it with the Love, the Flower Childs and all that. when they seen what hip hop was going to turn into, especially with Ice-T Cop Killer
Oh,
and
oh,
many other hip hop albums that were very, very boisterous about the mistreating of black men in the streets. I think when they seen that, it was probably around the 1993 era where they said, okay, we need to either put this in check or steer it off in a complete different direction and pay these artists to push a different agenda to help keep these minds from elevating to a higher resonance, you know?
I'm really glad you mentioned, Ice-T and Cop Killer and all that. I mean, that was hugely controversial for its time. I mean, well, especially with what's going on in LA right now. I mean,
Right.
I mean, controversial of a song as it might be, I mean, its relevance hasn't really dwindled, unfortunately.
Yeah. And he used to be in law enforcement, and I feel like if I take it there, we're going to go to a different topic. But I think that's where hip hop was at a pinnacle to be something great, and the powers that be turned it into something that was more of shackles, and they paid you for the negative message, and they paid you well for the negative message. Just think about what the negative messages does for hip hop and kids on the street. It keeps lawyers happily employed. It keeps law enforcement happily out there making arrests. It keeps the state system running their prisons. It keeps the judicial system always with a revolving door. And why would you ever change that if you know this particular music can do this to particular people? Now, I'm going to throw this out there. Country's not doing that in that time. Okay. R&B is not doing that in that time.
reggae wasn't doing it.
Reggae is not doing that. Blues music is not doing
jazz.
that. Jazz music is not doing that. Classical music is not doing that. We could keep going down. Rock and roll is not doing that. 90s rock. You didn't hear Nirvana talking about selling drugs and
He was on drugs. But
he was on drugs, but he wasn't talking about selling drugs and getting in cars and clubs and drink this type of beer and you should roll with this type of gun and wear this type of color to associate where you're from and this neighborhood is yours, although you don't own a fucking thing. Kill that man that looks just like you because he's wearing red and you're wearing blue. Keep pumping that music out. I'm going to pay you millions to keep pumping that out.
Well, and Marilyn Manson comes to mind too. I mean, he certainly caught his fair share of
Oh,
flack
yeah.
in the
Yeah.
mid '90s.
That's
a lot
right.
of
Yeah.
controversy. Around
Yeah, but that was a fluke though, right? Like that's just one guy at the time.
True, and I feel as though, like Senator Joseph Lieberman, just as an example, I mean, he very much misinterpreted what Antichrist Superstar was really all about. I mean, it was mainly about the power of the self. I mean, a lot of the more negative aspects of that particular album just kind of, were blown out of proportion.
that, by you saying that, we can kind of deviate off of hip hop a little bit.
Yeah, hang on. Cressy has a question.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to take us off of hip hop a little bit here, but it's a good question. Record shops in England stock mainly vinyl albums. Single are there, but buried. I guess he meant to say singles are there, but buried. Is that the same in the U.S.?
Well, especially as it pertains to Spotify, I mean, Spotify tends to be a little more catered to the album experience, which is something I can certainly appreciate. I mean, smarter people than I can probably tell you about how radios kind of made adjustments to how they promote the single. Because I mean, I know Sabrina Carpenter has a new single out that's being touted as a Song of the Summer. I mean, I still have yet to hear it on my local pop radio station. Well, I mean, that's not to say that they're not playing it at all. But it's probably a lot more famous for its music video than just the song itself.
Yeah.
At this point.
Do you think vinyl's making a comeback?
Oh, it absolutely. It is since been making a comeback since, I want to say about roughly 2008-ish. And I don't know what the origin of it might have been. Maybe just as a quest for something that actually sounds better. Maybe people like or people like myself were using their old parents' turntables and their old records to, in my case, study along with. In high school, I was studying along with Rush and Yes and Dead Kennedys, and just having something there for me while I was just kind of trudging my way through all this homework. But since then, other institutions like Record Store Day, as an example, promoting exclusive releases just for that day, so that when they sell out, I mean, that's it, they're gone forever. I remember first participating in Record Store Day, and it was just crazy how many great reissues of stuff were coming out, of albums that were really only available on CD for the longest time, or maybe even discontinued on CD for the longest time. The collectability of it, and I mean, I can only assume that a lot of younger girls who are buying Taylor Swift albums. I mean, I've definitely read reports about how a lot of those Taylor Swift albums aren't seeing turntables at all. I mean, it's more collecting it maybe just as like a a sort of status symbol. I mean, whenever I'm selling these records at the store, I mean, I don't know how they're going to be used the moment that they walk out the door with them. Is it going to be a ways and means of impressing their friends? Is this something that they're actually connected to and will get a lot of enjoyment out of for time to come? But with the rise of vinyl in the first place, I mean, for a while, I almost kind of thought that, maybe it was like, just another trend. But at the rate that, I have like a bunch of younger people coming through my store, and, they're picking up records saying that, oh yeah, my mom and dad got me a turntable for Christmas, and I want to, use the hell out of it.
Right. Right.
How many records have you purchased just because of the album cover?
That's what. Okay, that
Yeah.
that was a question here. So let me read the question. Okay, Cresshead says, you can see the tracks. Huge format means large cover art. People chose an album for the artwork. How often are you seeing that? People coming in and like, oh, this is amazing, I'm just going to purchase that.
I mean, I'm certainly guilty of it myself. To give you an idea, I do have, over, last I looked anyway, about 2,100 records in my collection. A very slim minority of which are like
2,100.
That's insane.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
And are
I'm
they
kind of crazy like that.
45s?
I've got like 9.
I have a very, very small
9.
collection of 45s, but for me, it's all about like the whole album experience. I absolutely love the whole album experience, and I mean, just throwing this out there as an example, there is an album by Masters of Reality. It was like a kind of a harder rock group from the very late 80s. They only ever put out like maybe just a few albums and dipped. But their self-titled album from '89, I believe it was, it does have very fantastic artwork that almost kind of evokes this, feeling of nostalgia for me. Because, I mean, like I discussed last time, I'm very much, an aesthetically inclined person. When I was looking through those Columbia House catalogs, I was looking for albums that had great artwork to them, and if they did, it would be the kind of thing that I would beg my parents for weeks on end to get for me, even though I hadn't really even heard like a single note of the music at all, like either on the radio or MTV and whatnot. All I knew is that I just really liked the album cover, and then when I would get it in the mail at long last, that's when I would, play it a few times to see how well I liked it.
So the cover didn't always mean you were going to like the music.
Not always. There were just a couple of times where the cover art did kind of deceive me to some degree, but, given the amount of effort I had to put forth in order to persuade my parents to, order it for me in Columbia House, I thought, well, I should probably, utilize this, more than just a few times just to help feel as though my parents are getting at least some of their money.
Because they invested in it. And
yeah.
I remember, excuse me. I remember Cressy had told me when he bought an album, he bought it because of the artwork. And even if he didn't know who the artist was, when you buy something, you're invested in it and you have to listen to it. Mm-hmm. And not just once, but like you have to listen to it.
To at least see what you got.
To see what, I mean, there's a chance you go, okay, this is shit. But it's something to be said when you invest something, you have to listen to it, especially when it comes to vinyl.
Yeah, and a great example I can also think of, Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons. He likes to talk about how Captain Beefheart's Trout Mask Replica is among his favorite albums of all time. Mm-hmm. He bought that record initially because Frank Zappa had produced it, and he really wanted to see what it was all about. But it's a very infamous album for the reason that, it's regarded as an avant-garde masterpiece. Mm-hmm. But to most people, it will just sound absolutely horrible, even after multiple listens of it. But when you start, getting into the backstory of how it was created and just under these crazy circumstances, that's when you begin to realize that he intended this album to sound exactly the way that it does. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's just all sorts of crazy rhythms going on, just parts that you would think that were just totally unplayable. Mm-hmm. But when you realize that, the entire album was recorded within like a single 6-hour session, it's because the musicians had been trained to play these songs over and over again for like, at least 18 hours a day for months on end to perfect them, to finally get them nailed down, so that by the time they did get into the studio, they could record it quickly and then, put it out into the world.
Yeah. Well, that's where the art form comes from then.
But but I mean, it's definitely an album that takes a lot of, listener involvement and understanding as to where exactly this artist is coming from, to, really appreciate the album itself. Because I know I certainly kind of struggled with it the first few times I heard it. I just thought it was just really cacophonous, horrible crap.
Yeah.
But over time, it does actually kind of grow on you. Because I don't know if you guys had ever heard of Trout Mask Replica before this. No. Definitely check it out sometime, and you'll see exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
You'll have to leave a list of shit to check out what you're saying.
And I mean, I'm sorry, but it's also a double album, so I mean, it really, it cost a lot back then too. Right. So you would have to like listen to it multiple times in order to feel as though you're getting your money's worth out of it.
Yeah, but you would recommend it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you seen cassette tapes come back around into stock again, or receiving new LPs on cassette?
Again, absolutely. I mean, I can remember when I first took over management of the North Anthony store about 4 years ago. I mean, my cassette wall was just filled to the brim. I mean, it's a pretty big wall in the first place. I think you might have even seen it while you were there.
Yep.
I mean, these days it's almost kind of threadbare now, because I'm just getting so many people, like both young and old, either bringing out their old cassette decks or buying like the little mini portable Jensen ones, and enjoying albums in a format they probably weren't all that familiar with. I mean, I myself started collecting cassettes about roughly a couple of years ago when I got that Audi TT from my parents. It's old enough of a car to have both a CD player and a cassette deck in it. regrettably, the CD player kind of conked out on me within about roughly 7 to 12 months of me initially owning it, but the cassette deck still worked. So I started investigating on eBay, like, certain albums that I really loved from my childhood, and, figuring, oh, well, something like, The Chronic on cassette tape is probably going to be, something like, $10, $15, give or take.
Mhm.
Absolutely not. It's going for like at least $30 to $40 because the demand for cassettes anymore is just so high.
Mhm.
I mean, cassettes are actually really coming back with a vengeance.
Right. Right.
And again, likewise with the rise of vinyl, I mean, I could speculate as to why it is, but I don't have like exact reasons for it.
Do you think people are aware that it's better to have things tangible than digital? What's your thoughts on digital versus tangible right now?
Like essentially streaming versus physical media.
Right.
I mean, there are certainly advantages to both. With streaming, I mean, a lot of artists have like this worldwide audience at basically little to no cost of acquisition. I mean, just as an example, the band Shellac, when they did a tour of Eastern Europe, I mean, despite having literally sold 0 copies of like physical copies of their albums, I mean, they were still playing to full houses. And I mean, that's largely due to, the Spotifys of the world, YouTubes, Pandoras, etc. And with physical media, I mean, because certain albums aren't available on Spotify.
Right.
I mean, the only way that you can get them is to actually get a physical copy of them, whether the artist deemed it so or the record label or whatever. But with physical media, people do tend to value, something that they can actually hold. It seems more like an actual art piece to them than something that they can just pull up on their phone in an instant and then just kind of casually stream. I mean, casual streaming is great for just kind of trying something out, but for something that people want to have for a very long time to come, that actually means something to them, they do want a physical copy of it, and I myself am very much like that. I also collect a lot of movies too, because with all the different streaming subscription services that are out there, I mean, the whole idea of, streaming like Netflix in the first place was to give you like a much less expensive alternative to cable. But for how many exclusive shows are being released on these exclusive platforms, and, people tend to have a wide variety of interests when it comes to like visual media like that. Unfortunately, they're signing up for Netflix, Hulu, this, that, and the other.
Yeah,
so
the
that by the
endless
time,
tunnel.
Right.
I mean, by the time you get all of those at long last,
You own actually nothing.
and it also costs about the same amount as cable was in the first place.
Right. Right.
But with, physical media, it can't be taken away from you once you buy it with your own money. I mean, nobody's like, Netflix isn't going to come into your house and take your copy of Oppenheimer just because it's not available on their streaming platform anymore.
Right.
I definitely have heard a lot of people talk about how, Breaking Bad, once its license runs out with Netflix, does that mean, we're only going to be able to, resort to physical media to enjoy that long last? I mean, as many used places as I've encountered over the years, I mean, DVD and Blu-ray copies of Breaking Bad stuff is about as common as water.
Right. Right.
And I mean, when it comes to the whole thing of, digital versus physical, it really depends on the user and how much they value what they value.
So what's the future look like to you? Do you think we're going to be in the future of virtually nothing is ever owned?
It's just a digital
Everything is in this
thumbprint.
cloud. Is that the goal, you think? Or
I mean, something like that might grow, but I don't think it'll ever entirely encompass the needs and wants of the consumer. I mean, because I can only assume that there are a lot of people like me out there who really love artwork as, mainly for entertainment or even just an escape from the brutal truths of reality. I definitely value physical media because anybody who comes into my house and looks at what I have, they can kind of get an overall impression of who I might be as a person.
Right.
It's kind of like a reflection of myself, and I do kind of pride myself on having a wide variety of tastes. I don't like to say no to things unnecessarily. So by the time you see my physical collection, you can't really pigeonhole me as to any just one thing.
Right.
And, there are other people out there who are like that, and they don't necessarily want to just, relegate everything to like digital files, just for convenience sake. I mean, to a certain degree, I almost kind of like how inconvenient it is to, have a disc that you got to put in, then you got to wade through, the legalese, warning, anti-piracy, this, that, and the other thing. I mean, sure, with streaming, you can just pull it up right away and, immediately watch it. But, you're probably also going to be subjected to, ads every so often.
I knew my musical taste was expanding when I came to Indiana on a medic swap. And Ken Ford introduced me to Pink Floyd's The Wall album. I knew then, I was like, oh, and this is well before my time. And I'm like, why does this sound relevant? Like, why does it sound good? I knew
because
then,
that was considered well before its time too.
Yeah. I knew then my walls had been like, it went beyond hip hop, Dave Matthews Band, and the grunge. But when I got me a Pink Floyd album for the first, and The Wall to be introduced to that, I was just like, let's go.
Yeah.
I mean, I was introduced to The Wall at a very young age. I was probably only in the 5th grade by the time I encountered it, because my dad had the cassette tape for it that I would, play in my Walkman, to and from school.
Was it red?
No, actually, it was just a regular white head shell. A lot of cassettes that came out of the 70s that were like that. But I also watched the movie shortly after that. It's kind of like a very emotionally heavy experience. Plus there's also nudity in it too. But
Well, it's Pink
but
Floyd.
I mean that's kind of what I liked about my parents. I mean, they didn't really care what I watched or listened to. I just couldn't really repeat any of that at school. But the relevance of The Wall to me was, the overarching theme of alienation. Because I grew up an only child, and admittedly, I did spend a lot of my time in my 9x9x11 bedroom. So, I mean, by the time I get out into the world and I experience people and all their, their quirks, their, toxic, personalities, I guess, something like that can be kind of easily alienating to somebody like me who likes being alone, who likes being left alone. But, I also have to, put myself out there if I can ever expect to, get anywhere in this life.
Right. Do you have a girlfriend?
No, I do not.
No. Are you currently looking for one?
Not really. I haven't really been in that mindset for at least a few years now. I mean, I just enjoy my own company. I enjoy being by myself. I mean, sure, on occasion I do get lonely, but it's more or less like this fleeting thing for me. I mean, by the time I get home and I put on a record while I'm making my dinner, I mean, I feel right at home.
Right. Right. I think there's something to be said about not having the want for a partner if you're completely comfortable with yourself. And maybe that lonely feeling can also just mean, hey, I'm feeling lonely. I'm going to go visit the twins and go do a podcast. And maybe that suffices the situation at hand versus committing yourself to something. And then that comes with, who knows, permanent residence with you. And that might put you in a very uncomfortable position, just trying to understand you as how you presented yourself to us for the past,
But the universe
weaker so that we've known you.
But the universe always says there's somebody out there for you that is just like you do.
There's that to be said too.
Yeah,
you know,
you ever think about that? That there's somebody out there that's just a perfect match for you. That you guys would coalesce, and have this like covalent bond with each other, and
Well, statistically speaking, yeah. I mean, given how many billions of people there are in this world, I mean, the odds are terrific, actually, that, you know, there is actually somebody out there who's perfectly suited for me, but whether or not we'll actually ever cross paths in this lifetime is not necessarily guaranteed.
Yeah.
So would you ever find yourself believing that you could manifest things like that? Are you a believer in manifestation? Let me just ask you that.
Maybe just a little, but on the whole, not really. I mean, because I am spiritual to some degree, but not necessarily to the point where, you know, if I like pray on something, or if I just kind of even just, you know, visually try to manifest what the perfect woman would be like for me, I don't necessarily believe that it's ever actually going to happen. Because like I said, I do need to put myself out there more. And, you know, if I'm, you know, just staying at home when I'm not at work, I mean, you know, she's not going to magically just appear in my living room.
Right, but
I mean, that would be
right.
a sign that she would
Right,
be the one.
Well, but like you said though, if you're at work and she miraculously comes through the door because you've put yourself out there, no one's saying like, I guess you don't have to truly actively put yourself out there, like go online and create this profile.
Yeah, because I don't necessarily want to like go out to bars to meet women, because I've never really felt overly comfortable in that kind of environment.
Well, it's a meat
anyway.
market. I've never done that shit. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I can relate.
But I think he's saying too, don't turn yourself off to the possibility too.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, because if you're gonna, manifestation doesn't have to look like some magic trick or something over animated that just looks silly.
Yeah.
Manifestation can just be a simple term as to opening your mind to a certain situation that's unfolding right in front of you, or maybe you meditate and contemplate on a particular situation
To come
you
your
would
way.
like to be comfortable in, so you can come out of this proverbial shell. I mean, manifestation looks like a lot of different things, not the hocus pocus things of it, like they show you on a big screen or something, you know, and it's just, oh, that could never, the odds of that happening is
Right.
it's ridiculous.
And then Wagyu says the perfect woman is never exactly how you imagine anyway. Right? Because there's nobody that's going to be 100% perfect
Oh,
for
absolutely
you.
not.
But they would resonate with you.
Yeah.
Sure.
Are you, because of your introvertism, if that's even a word?
Well, it is now.
It is.
There
now.
you go. He manifested that.
There you
See what I'm
go.
saying?
Do you think that you would, subconsciously speaking, something you really don't really think about that could be lying dormant for the days that you say, yeah, I am kind of lonely? Does Colin ever wake up and go, you know what? I think I want a partner in life.
I mean, there have certainly been times where I've come close to wanting to establish like a Tinder profile, a Bumble profile. Because, I mean...
Wait, Tinder, those are just pussy profiles. You know that, right?
Well...
Colin, are you just looking for pussy, or are you looking for a relationship? I'm curious now.
I mean, sometimes I myself don't really even know.
You don't even know?
And it's okay not to know. Like
Yeah.
the crazy rabbit would even tell you it's okay. He says, if you're happy on the station 103.5 solo, roll with that frequency. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
if you're comfortable somewhere and you know this is your spot, ultimately, I would trust my gut.
Yeah.
I would say to myself, I'm comfortable here. I know this environment. This is what makes me happy. I'm not being pulled this way. I'm not being pulled that way. I'm in a neutral ground. If I add in another component, things may not run smoothly.
And I'm not saying by any means change your position. I'm just asking if you ever thought about someone else or anything like that. And the reason why I ask is because this morning in the Pubness, and I know he's not going to have a problem with this. His name is Awkward Teeth Hair Product or something.
Awkward Teeth and Hair Productions.
We had a small conversation, and I just happened to catch one of his statements, and more in the synopsis form of it, he was saying how he was lonely, and so we started to talk, and I even said, well, there's like dating sites out there. You can at least start there if you. And he said he had thought about that, but because of the way his teeth were, he has this self-image, this self-confidence thing about how his teeth are formed, that he would not get any response. And so I'm thinking like, well, okay, you don't have to really show your teeth, just smile. And most people nowadays, it's really not about the outer shell. It's about the compatibility factor. People are looking for someone that vibes with them. Do you think you have some sort of self-confident issues if you were to look back at your situation? And what would that be?
Well, I mean, because for me anyway, sometimes I don't really even know what true confidence really even looks like. Because I mean, it can be easily mistaken for arrogance, and I certainly never want to fall into that pit where I think I'm the shit, therefore I deserve, or at least I'm entitled to, like, certain people coming into my life and either using them for sex or actually engaging them into a short-term relationship. But every single time I've ever come close to wanting to like establishing a dating profile, I mean, I usually have to stop and ask myself, why exactly do I want this? Why am I doing this? And there are just times where I'm just really not sure why. And given that, I don't want to involve a woman in my life that I'm really not emotionally ready for, because I just feel as though that just really would not be fair to her.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, like I said, I mean, I'm all that I've known for a very long time. And I mean, there have been times where I have gone out on dates, where I have gotten laid, this, that, and the other. But, when it comes to finding fulfillment, it's something that I have to trust myself with. I have to, find a lot of, confidence within myself to say, I'm one among, billions of others on this planet. How do I fit in with all of this? I mean, like I said, confidence is not really something that I always recognize within myself. 'Cause I mean, like with last time around, you guys thought that, I looked pretty confident. I carried myself in that way. But, deep down, I'm like, oh my God, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I accidentally go on this tangent that doesn't really have to do with the question that they just asked?
Well, and then what you're questioning is, what if I'm me? Oh dear God, what if I'm me in front of this person?
Because ultimately, that's what this I mean, if you look around, I didn't once present you with a script of what we're going to talk about. It was our goal when we did this was to just have a conversation with people as we would without the camera here. We're not the most articulate. We're not college taught. We're not scientists. We're not politicians. We're just the layman man. And the way we hold the conversation is just like this. Who knows where it goes? Who knows how it's going to sidetrack?
Well, since you even mentioned sidetrack, the radio show that I do on Saturday night, Sidetracks, when I was initially starting out with that, myself on the radio was me trying to emulate what, a radio MC should be. Somebody who talks like this, I'm playing this song and this song, which follows in with this theme. And did you know this, that, and the other thing, trying to
up talk.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that wasn't really me being myself. And I it, I'm still, just trying to work on, treating the radio show as a ways and means of having a conversation with my audience, whoever they might be. Because the entire time that I have been doing sidetracks, I mean, I've only ever been given like the most vague information about, what my listenership is like, what the demographic is like. To this day, I mean, my audience is still just kind of like this faceless, formless thing to me. But, I have to recognize that on the other end of the, of the microphone, coming out of the speaker is a person who loves music, presumably, and wants to know more about it, have their horizons broadened, and I am that person to do that for them. And, I'm just trying to treat it more along the lines of, something like this type of setting, friends just having a conversation with each other about the music and, perhaps even engaging other people, getting them involved in the discussion. Yeah. And I mean, it's just taken me a long time to finally figure out like what my own radio voice is and not necessarily, the voice of, the typical radio MC.
Yeah. Can you go ahead and plug that radio channel you work for again?
Yeah, Sidetracks. It's on 89.1 WVOI on Saturday nights from 9 to 11 p.m. And the entire idea is that we just play anything and everything. I mean, I like to do specific themes within our half-hour segments because I do have a co-host with me. His name is Brad Outer. He's an older gentleman. And I like to think that I bring more of like a wild card energy into the mix because of my, really eclectic taste. Like I've done everything from like rap and hip hop. I've done classical segments. I've done gospel. I've done metal. I've done country, R&B. You name it, I've probably done it by now. And I do like to do these specific themes so that I have like an education angle into all of it. I like to educate as well as entertain.
Is it ran by NPR or is it just
like an NPR affiliate station?
Okay.
Because WBOI does broadcast like NPR news programs. I don't know the specifics about all of that, but I mean, it's a pretty hip show. Because recently. We've had this MC come into the fold. Her name is Angel Subtle, and she has a show called The Halo Effect, where she plays a lot of like R&B, some rap material, even gospel from time to time. But her angle is, these older songs are kind of getting reinterpreted by the newer generations. Using sampling as like building blocks to create something new. Honoring both the history and the tradition of it all and honoring, what's going on right now. And I think it's a, really brilliant concept for a show. And I think she's been doing a lot of great things with it so far.
Okay. And then we'll also put that information in Discord. I don't want to hold you much longer, so let me get straight to the next question. I know you got to get out of here. What do you think happens after death? Do you think there's an afterlife?
If there is indeed an afterlife, I don't necessarily think it's the stereotypical visions of heaven that have been conveyed throughout the Bible. Because I'm definitely more spiritual than I am religious. I mean, I was brought into the Catholic Church when I was a little kid, and then after a while, I just kind of left the church because. I mean, I guess in a nutshell, it's kind of like the religion of guilt and shame. This idea that you have to, pay penance every week for, the sins that you do in a given week, go to confession and all that. And I mean, among other reasons, I just didn't feel comfortable with the church anymore. I didn't really agree with it. So for years after that, I was like this hardcore atheist that set out to actually like try to disprove the existence of God. But over time, certain things have happened to me that have really made me think, what are the odds of this happening? And to that end, I've at least tried to broaden my own mind and, leaving myself open to, various interpretations of, what the consciousness is and what the afterlife could look like, after our bodies, finally give out. I mean, with the example of Sly Stone, I mean, it was announced that he had passed away
Right,
yesterday.
yes.
So who knows where his conscious mind went after his body finally expired? I mean, is he among the cosmic heavens right now? Is he, currently chilling out with Prince, who was, a major acolyte of Sly and the Family Stone? And, it's something that, I like to ponder from time to time, but I never really come up with any sort of definitive answers. I mean, I guess I hope, after my body finally expires, just exploring the cosmic heavens for, all of eternity.
What does that look like to you? Do you have a feeling deep within that something tells you, yeah, there's something after this, I just don't know what it looks like? Or are you just closing it out like, whatever it is, I don't care?
Well, I mean, I don't really want to think that, after we die, that it's just like pure blackness, just nothing.
But even
But
nothing
you-
is
I
something.
always say that, but-
Anything.
Nothing is something if
you-
it's nothing,
You,
right?
You describe nothing as something.
Yeah.
Pure blackness, nothing, just there. You're still putting yourself consciously aware of nothing.
Okay, that
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I also understand what
But-
you're
but
saying.
where you're coming
yeah,
from,
lights out. That's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
And we always say that.
But what's the latter half?
could you rephrase that?
What's
please?
the latter half of nothing that you think could happen?
Well, like I said, just kind of, taking the consciousness within you and then just kind of using it to,
Make sure.
explore infinity,
Oh,
whatever
shit.
that might be. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's exactly going to be like, the Stargate sequence
Uh-huh,
of,
yeah.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah.
I would certainly like for that to happen, but I don't know for
Yeah.
sure. And even the people who think that they really do know for sure, I know in my heart of hearts that they do not in fact know for sure.
Right.
I mean,
right.
nobody does.
Nobody
Right.
does. Yeah. Have you ever had an outer body experience, or have you ever been put in a situation where you were like, oh my God, that was divine intervention? Or did I just explore outside of my body by any chance?
I really don't think so, honestly. I don't know. I struggle to think of an instance.
What about when you tried psilocybin or acid?
or
Was there anything there that made you think? Because when you're on these things, it actually
supposed to have a breakthrough or enhances the
right. It actually
the awareness of the
slows
conscious.
down the
Yeah.
activity in the brain. Did you perceive anything that
Well, I mean,
was strange?
especially with the mushroom trip. I mean, the mushroom trip was, strictly for fun.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really necessarily have a goal in mind other than to just take them and, see if I tripped out and saw hallucinations, because, at one point I was in my friend's pool and I was looking up at, like the moon and the stars and everything. And I thought I kind of saw like a skull in the sky or something along those lines. But with the acid trips in particular, I did go into it with the goal of trying to find out more about myself and trying to figure out a way to instill more confidence within me to get me to realize that, I am just, another person among billions on this earth. I'm trying to find my place in the world. Because mind you, my psychedelic experiences were about a decade ago. So I'm a lot younger. I'm a lot more naive. I'm a lot less, sure of myself, more insecure. And I'm just trying to figure out ways of interacting with others to make myself, more respectful, more well, I hate to use the word more pleasing, but just trying to come across as somebody who just wants maybe even just to make friends.
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to make enemies in
Right,
this
right,
lifetime,
right.
even though something like that can't necessarily be helped.
But how much of your interpretation of LSD, you said you had this thing that you wanted to work on. You had this mindset. I'm going to try this drug and I'm going to work on this specifically. But how much of that went to the wayside and the drug dictated what you need to work on?
Well, it helped that I had, well, the person who acquired the acid for me, he was kind of like my babysitter in this situation, just to kind of, help guide my journey on this drug.
You're a shaman.
Essentially, yeah. Trying to, prevent something along the lines of a bad trip experience from happening.
So, and to get further understanding of this, you had someone who we would normally say is like a street shaman, right? And he's doing his due diligence by telling you, look, this is LSD. This much can cause this much can cause this. I need to prepare you and put these like sort of warnings out so you know what to expect. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be by your side to make sure everything goes well and to bring you back and forth. And is this the kind of like overlay he's giving you? Or did you already have some sort of knowledge prior to going in?
Well, he certainly encouraged me to have a goal in mind beyond just having fun with it, because I mean, this is a mind expanding substance. I mean, it's not something to be taken lightly at all. Because with the trip that I had, he was certainly trying to guide me towards more positive ways of thinking, and it also helped that for the majority of this acid trip, we were in Matea Park, we were in nature, just trying to connect with the other living beings and organisms of the forest, whether it's the trees, the animals, the birds, etc. For me, it was a ways and means of trying to instill more confidence within myself, to put myself out there more, to not be so susceptible to falling into the trappings of anxiety and insecurity. Because granted, all this was at least 10 years ago or so, and I'm trying to remember more aspects of it. But I never really overtly hallucinated anything. It's not like I heard the trees talking to me, or they were waving their limbs right in their nothing like that.
So less auditory, more vision, you would say?
Well, even just from a visual standpoint, it was more like the fascination of what I was seeing, and not necessarily hallucinating certain things. Like, I know last time around you had mentioned Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and of course, Raul Duke is tripping on acid for most of it, and he's talking about seeing his dead grandmother crawling up his leg with a knife in her teeth or something along those lines. My trips were not like that at all. I mean, I don't know how much I would have needed to take in order for a visual hallucination like that to really come through, because I certainly knew of people who did trip that hard. Like, I had a friend of mine who took just an ungodly amount of acid and was pretty much just catatonic in his chair for at least 4 to 6 hours, and he talked about how he saw death and just all sorts of crazy stuff, and that's not necessarily the kind of trip that I wanted for myself.
Right.
It was more like this journey of self-improvement, whatever that might have entailed throughout my 10 or 12 hour long trip.
Crazy Rabbit says, question, did the trip meet your goals?
I mean, to a certain degree it did, because I certainly tried leaving notes for myself, while I was on acid, trying to assure myself of certain things that I was, very anxious about, because around that time I had dated somebody who wasn't what she advertised herself as being. And, as a consequence, it did screw me up pretty good. So, some of the notes that I was leaving behind to myself were, just this assurance that, I should just really just take the lesson for what it was, just let it go so that I can finally move forward with my life and see who else might come along.
Right.
Open myself up to that next person, whoever it might be, learn from the mistakes that I made during that previous journey, and just doing my best to apply it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you find someone since that last relationship?
I mean, I did date somebody briefly, but, it mainly ended because, we just knew we weren't really all that compatible with each other. I mean, we might have had some common interests, but not really enough to really build a lasting, it wasn't a foundation to really build a lasting relationship on.
Right.
Okay. Two last questions and subjects. You can elaborate as much as you want
Okay.
for the time that you have.
Okay. I mean, I can stick around just a little bit longer.
Okay. Do you have reasons to believe we're living in a simulation? The next question is going to be based on AI, but the first one is that. Is there anything in your mind that suggests what we are seeing is one big old hallucination and everything is computing as like proverbial cogs and ones and zeros?
There are certainly events going on right now. I mean, especially as it pertains politically, like, in terms of the quality of our leadership right now. I mean, there are just times where I feel as though we haven't really had, adequate leadership for a very long time. And it's kind of showing because, with what's going on in world events right now, it's just so bizarre that, even like a great fiction writer probably couldn't come up with that sort of thing on their own. So to a certain degree, I mean, who knows? Maybe we are living in this mass hallucination simulation, and who knows what the world really truly looks like.
But it's something you sat and pondered before, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, I mean, because I guess The Matrix, the movie The Matrix certainly has, that theme to it of, reality versus a simulation that we're living in. What could be more appealing to us in this life could actually be something that doesn't actually exist. I don't know if that makes sense or anything, but I mean, I guess that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, certain aspects of this reality could very well be masquerading as a simulation and vice versa, but reality is strange. Reality is very, very strange indeed.
Well, given if it is, let's just say if it is a simulation, what do you think the purpose of it is? If we're in a simulation, what's your best guess why we're here?
Well, because assuming that we are in a simulation and it's being run by like a group of scientists, if you will, maybe it's to gain a better understanding of the human mind and how and why it works. Because I mean, a lot of discoveries have already been made. A lot of books have been published. A lot of research papers have been put forth into the world that try to explain the human mind and how we act and how we think, our motivations for doing things. But there's always going to be that tiny little sliver that we'll never understand, but there will always be that drive to try to figure out how it operates.
Right. To make sense of it all.
Yeah.
And with that said, are you afraid of transitioning? Are you afraid of the dying or the death process?
I mean, I'm afraid of it now because, I mean, I'm still young. I mean, I hope to live for many decades to come. I mean, I certainly don't want to die yet.
Yeah.
But, as I progress in my age and, I start to, reach like the November and December of my years, I can already tell that I will have more of an assurance that, death is maybe not necessarily an end. It's just a change.
That's a good way of looking
That's
at
a good. It sounds like a gut feeling you have too, like the way you said it.
Well, because I'm sorry, but because when my grandmother died early last year, I mean, it was, a death that really hit closely to me because, while my parents were away at work, she and my grandpa, definitely had a very strong hand in like raising me as a kid. They were the ones to, pick me up from preschool, take me back to the house for lunch and activities until, one of my parents would finally get off work and pick me up and take me home. So it was a death that I tried to frame it in such a way where it was just a change for me. I mean, that person is no longer in my life. And unfortunately, she had been suffering from dementia for at least like the last, about 7, 8, maybe even a full decade before she had passed. So she really wasn't, the spectacular woman that I had grown up with. She had just become kind of like this shell of herself, and to me, that was definitely the saddest aspect of her passing. Not the passing itself, but just kind of her losing herself. And when she did finally pass away, I just viewed it as a change where she's no longer in my life, but I'm at least taking some of the stuff that she had instilled in me as a child and, just applying it to my adult life. I didn't necessarily view it as an end, just a change.
Yeah. Okay. Last question. AI.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are afraid of it. A lot of people are confused by it. A lot of people celebrate it. I just saw an article. A lot of people are now starting to worship AI like it's a deity and it's going to change the way we look at the world. What's your thoughts on AI? What's your thoughts on AI and the music industry? Maybe just give me a little bit of what you think about. Do you have fears over AI? Do you think it's this big monster we're making it out to be? Is it a blessing that we have something that can possibly balance the scales on the table? Is this something that's going to really assist man or take over man's everything?
I certainly believe that it is a useful tool and it has the potential to really serve mankind in a very meaningful way. I mean, I recently read an article about how AI can be used to detect breast cancer, even like about maybe 5 years before it ever actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
And to that end, I mean, as long as we harness it as a tool to help us, it could be a wonderful thing. However, given what I'm seeing, how it's being used within like the music and film industry, it is a very dangerous thing also. Because, I mean, just as an example, Kanye on some of his more recent projects, I mean, unfortunately, his brains have just been so fried from all the nitrous oxide that he's inhaled over the years that his music has definitely suffered tremendously because of it. And I think it was the Bully project that he released earlier this year while I was in the hospital, and I just kept forgetting about it because I wasn't really even looking forward to it in the first place. But when I finally did get around to it, I mean, yeah, there were definitely a lot of AI-generated vocals being used throughout it, and it really made me kind of ponder how much involvement he actually had in the creative process of his own album.
Right.
I mean, because the best song on that project was essentially just like a copy-pasted sample of Can's Vitamin C with just one word changed. And I mean, the rest of it just sounded like a bunch of like chopped and screwed sample work of stuff that he might have only come up with in just like a few minutes, and then he just had AI just slap some random ass vocals onto the track and just bam, called it an album.
Right.
there's also the AI generated singer Anna Indiana, just the most. I mean, even just looking at the videos of this artist, I mean, it just looks really creepy.
Right.
And to that end, I would like to see AI, help us with some of the more laborious aspects of life, like helping us build stuff, helping us develop more sophisticated medicines to combat disease. I just don't really want it to be in art. I don't really want it to have all that much involvement in art, because art is very much a human experience. It's very much, a reflection of humanity as a whole. I mean, when you start, using AI to, generate both music and film, it can't help but come across as just overly synthetic. It can't help but come across as inauthentic and just totally fake. And I can definitely see like this slippery slope happening where, a bunch of record labels are going to start having AI just kind of creep into more and more aspects of the creative process, just to kind of help streamline.
So you don't think these producers are going to say, "Hey, I got AI to print out some lyrics for said artist," or here's some lyrics for said hip hop artist, or here's lyrics for said blues writer or pop performer. You think it's going to go as far as we're not even going to know if this stuff literally came from a human's mind and out into the music industry?
I mean, because some people will be able to tell whether something is AI generated or not. The people who have really come to love art and explored many aspects of it, it'll be a little more readily apparent to them that something is AI generated. But to the average person who just kind of treats it as like this commodity, they're probably not going to be any wiser,
right,
as to whether or not something is AI generated and for what purpose.
Because we have a guy in Discord, his name is Steve Elbows, and he generates some things that are just, sometimes I can't even tell if it's AI or not. How are we ever going to discern lyrics from AI that was handed to a human? How, in your mind, what are going to be some of the telltale signs that we're living in a world where nothing is even ours anymore? Books aren't written by us. They're AI or ChatGPT is just wrote a book for an author on prompts. Is our whole everything creative going to be prompts?
It could very well be. I mean, depending on how desperate the industry is to make a lot of money as quickly as possible, I mean, it could very well be incorporated to a lot more aspects of art. And unfortunately, the more sophisticated that it becomes, it's going to be harder and harder to tell if it was like actually done by a human that's trying to, express themselves through these mediums.
Well, I mean, then you have shit. That's just going to rule out the artist entirely, right?
And you're going to have a front seat being working in a record store. How long before you start selling albums that has just been created by AI? There's no human attached to it at all.
And then what concert would you go to? If AI is mass producing all these hit records, that means the concert game is out, right? Because if you got AI doing it, unless you pay somebody to get up there and do a Milli Vanilli to one of your AI records,
I mean,
what does that look like?
I mean, unfortunately, that is a very real possibility. I mean, there are some people out there, or like there are some music fans out there who speculate that a band like Sleep Token is almost entirely AI generated.
Okay.
Because, I mean, it's a band that I certainly sell on a regular basis at the record store.
So you're already selling AI stuff.
Well, it's merely speculated that they could very well be an AI-generated thing, especially since, the lead singer likes to, almost kind of pull like a ghost in a way. He has like this, costume that, just kind of covers his entire being. I mean, it could very well be under a robot. It could very well be a robot underneath like the robe and the mask and everything. And, at the rate, or at least the way the vocalist sounds on the album, I mean, if it was revealed one of these days that Sleep Token is an AI generated band, I personally wouldn't be all that surprised, but maybe the people who pick up their records would be like, because when I listen to something like Sleep Token, when I give it an earnest shot, all I'm really hearing is a bunch of commercially minded box checking. Like, does this song have like a pop rap verse? Check. Does this have like something that could be vaguely considered R&B? Check. Does this have something that could be construed as pop music? Check. Does this have something that sounds like modern metal? Check. And to that end, I don't really respect something with those intentions to be as commercially minded as possible, because I mean, fundamentally speaking, it's just existing just to make money.
Right. But it's all about the money at the end of the day when it's mainstream, right?
True.
Nothing ever worth sought after to enjoy you're going to get from mainstream. It's going to be somewhere like proverbially digging in the crates. You're going to have to search and scour the dark web, or not necessarily the dark web, but you're going to have to go to your local record store. You're going to have to get out, go to a nightclub and see people play music, hear about it on social media, hear about it in the off the street.
Yeah. Let me get a couple of these comments out real quick. AI is usually generic, well done, but generic. Would you agree with that?
I mean, yeah, I would.
Okay. The bands I love to see play live. That was from Wagyu.
Right.
Crazy Rabbit says, if there is no originality, aren't we already listening to copied works?
Damn.
I mean, especially as we get to this stage in popular music, I mean, popular music has been around for so many decades now that, I mean, love as a subject, a song subject, has been just covered so many times that, is there an original idea concerning love, that we still haven't really touched upon yet as human beings? I mean, it's something along the lines of what Joe Strummer from The Clash once said. The subject's been long since been covered. We're done with it. Let's move on to something else. But as long as human beings really value love, I mean, that's always going to be a thing. That's going to be sung about. It's going to be written about.
Someone's
it's going
different
to be filmed.
Yeah, someone's different interpretation about it.
Probe says, there have always been bands that never played a note on their record, but it was always session musicians. I'm guessing AI will be used a bit like that.
As a session
band.
But even then, right, the whole, like Wags was saying, the point of going to a concert, because in mainstream, not even mainstream, if you want to sell your music for the artist, it's always the goal to get out there and perform live, right?
Okay, so
when you go to perform live, you want to be there.
You want to be there.
You want to see the guy that's playing
right.
the guitar, the guy that's playing the drums.
So Wagyu says, I saw Sleep Token live in 2019. They played all their instruments live. However, I don't get why Sleep Token got so popular. It's very sleepy music that goes for metal for 10 seconds briefly.
Well, I mean, this is kind of my cynicism talking, but whenever I pull up the Billboard 200 on a weekly basis just to kind of get some sort of sociological metric of what people are really enjoying and listening to.
Finger on the pulse.
Yeah, trying to anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I do look at a lot of the most popular artists that are like in the top 10, and I really do have to question, like, do people actually enjoy this, or is this just something that they're throwing on in the background? Like, because a lot of it is, well, I mean, I'm sorry to say, but a lot of it is just kind of really mediocre. a lot of it, just sounds just really incredibly average. And whenever I have, whenever I just kind of express it, just kind of like this disdain for it, I also have to remember that a lot of people are just really average. And I mean, that's just who they are. I mean, that's not really something that can be helped.
Right.
I mean, when I see that, somebody like Morgan Wallen has his 3 albums in the top 20, and like the Dangerous, the double album has been out for 4 years now, and One Thing at a Time has been out for at least 2, but it's still like within, the top 10. I'm like, how are people just not totally sick of this guy just yet? Like his albums are like these monstrosities that have like at least 30 some odd songs. They're all about roughly 3 minutes apiece, and they're about whiskey, girls and whiskey, truck, maybe even dirt road. I don't know. I haven't listened too closely to Morgan Wallen, but with some of the criticisms that I've read about Morgan Wallen, even just beyond his controversies, it's just, again, likewise with something like Sleep Token, it's just something that's purposely designed to be as commercially successful as possible.
And just try to entertain and meet the masses. That's it.
Right.
Yeah, just something that the average person can just enjoy casually while they're doing other things.
Mind-numbingly.
Yeah. Okay, Crazy Rabbit says, also, as us old hats die off, will AI be the norm and those born today will not know what to even question?
I mean, unfortunately, that is a possibility.
But this is the thing about passing down your gems, your LPs, your 45s, your tapes, your CDs. They'll always have a reference of what was once done by a human, what was once good. I don't think you can ever sort of say wipe away the history of music, right? Because we're gonna always do it as humans. It's something. It's like our innate ability. You're born with it.
Yeah.
Maybe not everybody has rhythm or can hold a note together, granted, but for humans, period, it's the mode of language for us. And it's been that way since tribes, since the dawn of humanity. So I don't know. It's whether they go searching for it. I think that's going to be more so the eye of the beholder, in my opinion.
Well, yeah. I mean, there's always going to be that percentage of people out there who are indeed going to, pass down throughout the generations, what art is supposed to be, what its purpose is. But, likewise, what I was just talking about, like using Morgan Wallen as an example and his immense popularity, I don't necessarily trust those people to pass down the importance of music, or at least pass down the authenticity that is necessary to have that human expression within art.
Yes. Tone Smith says, Sleep Token is just okay and kind of goofy. Certainly not bad, though. But yeah, I'm not buying any of their records. So, I mean, everybody is agreeing with the census here as it is what it is. Sleep Token were a pre-band when I saw them. Never expect them to take off. They just frustrate me as their brief, heavy bits actually good, but that's only 5% of their stuff is pop.
Yeah, and, well, I mean, if I were to be a cheerleader in this particular instance, I mean, if Sleep Token is what you need to, get through your day without, causing harm to somebody, then go for it. I mean, listen to Sleep Token all the time. Enjoy it as you enjoy it.
Yeah.
But, along the lines of a truth teller, there are certainly more authentic bands out there who are maybe comparable to Sleep Token that would probably be more enriching for the soul.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You are throwing shots out there, Colin. I like the way you just...
well, I mean, the whole cheerleader versus truth teller aspect. I don't necessarily know if it is, a truth because, what I just said was, still kind of an opinion of sorts, but I'm trying to make it more rooted in the truth, I guess.
So is there a fear for you in your mind and in your profession? Because you have a great mind, you have a great memory, and this is what people love when we actually go to a record store, is to talk to people like you who invest your time and actually be a representation of a record store, a radio personality. Do you have a fear AI is going to take over these entry-level jobs and jobs like yours because they're just going to harbor more information? Or is there something to be said about a human interaction with a person on the radio, a person inside the record store?
Well, I mean, I consider myself fortunate in the sense that I work for an independent record store. If like, say, the Sam Goody's of the world were still open, or if like the Best Buys of the world were still selling music,
yeah.
I could see like a corporate entity like that, replacing somebody like me with, an AI generated entity.
Mm-hmm.
But, given that I come from an independent record store that actually employs human beings, and those human beings, rely on the business to, help keep their livelihood, I don't fear it as much. But if I was within that corporate structure, I mean, yeah, I probably would be a little more fearful about it.
Do you think there's a nefarious entity out there that's looking for the human demise and making sure we don't really interact with each other or do much more? Is that society, or is that the powers that be saying we're in a situation because of who we are as human beings, so the next best solution is to eliminate us from doing so many different things? Are we not viable enough? Should we just be humans exploring our hobbies and arts and not really worrying about how to run the world?
Well, because I feel as though corporate entities, it would probably be in their best interest to keep the masses uneducated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I keep hearing about, cuts to education programs, and, even cuts to, certain entities like, PBS and NPR that, definitely have more of an educated mindset and focus. I mean, it would be in certain corporations' best interest to keep us in that, static mind state, so that, all that's really left for us to do is just consume goods.
Okay. Yeah. And how do we do that if we don't have jobs and able to pay our way through life?
I mean, it certainly, points the way forward to a dystopian future. I mean,
I like how you just I like how you just arrived there.
Yeah, I was thinking dystopian.
So you would have to
10 minutes ago.
Yeah. So you would have to believe there would have to be some kind of global compensation. If we're to go this route, all that's expected from us is to practice the arts we love and our hobbies.
I mean, they are essential to us as human beings. I mean, it's how we express the ideas that help us grow in this world, how we interact with each other, teaching each other to have respect, not only for ourselves, but for the culture at large.
Mm-hmm.
Something along those lines.
So a utopia is much like communism, or no?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily go so far
because
as to say that.
people are
like you.
People are arguing that fact that utopianism is more like communism,
and it's not.
What's the point?
It's so far
right. And I'm not saying I agree with
Right.
it. I'm just, yeah.
Mhm.
So
the difference is you can't have utopiaism with the reality and constructs of what you're born into. We've already been tainted with this way of life. To paint a life where it's every man do for the colony, do for the preservation of humanity, and just do your part, whatever that part may be, that's utopia, right? but we can't think that way because you'll always have one person, like he's saying, this is communism. What if I want this and that, or how do I get over this person, and what if this person doesn't work? And you'll always have that human that thought, you know. If we didn't have this system, and we were in a utopian like world, we wouldn't probably be having this conversation because we all be in the embetterment for each other.
Right.
There'd be no
Right.
no contrast.
Right.
Well, as a closing comment, because I mean, unfortunately,
Right.
I do kind of have to wrap this up here, but
Yep.
I mean, especially since we're talking about communism and all, it does make me think about what Frank Zappa once said on the subject. You know, communism can never really truly work in a society with more than just like 7 or 8 people, mainly because, you know, no matter who you are, we like to own things. And I mean, try as we might to look out for each other and, you know, trying to, you know, serve each other in meaningful ways. You know, with a wide enough net of a population, there's always going to be a certain percentage of them that doesn't really want to do anything for the other people. There's always going to be that, you know, population that's only after themselves. And, you know, fortunate as that is, I mean, that also is just humanity. I mean, we're all yins and yangs.
Yeah.
I mean, there are always going to be, you know, positive aspects of, you know, like myself. There's always going to be negative aspects of myself. And, you know, I always try to make the good win out in the end. But, you know, there's always going to be that part of myself that is going to be selfish. It's always going to be more self-serving. It's always going to, you know, try to do what's like most comfortable to me. And, you know, I mean, a lot of other people are like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if we were only ever just good, I mean, we would actually be more mechanical in that aspect. I mean, that's the entire idea behind the title, A Clockwork Orange.
Right.
I don't know if you guys
Yes.
have,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
indeed. I mean, it's essentially Kubrick's commentary on humanity itself. I mean, to that end, I think it's probably one of the more ambitious movies that he ever made, because, you know, we all have this life within us, but if we were only ever designed to do good for each other, or if we were only ever designed to, you know, just do bad towards each other, I mean, it does promote that sense of mechanicalism, that mechanism within ourselves.
Yeah. So it's good to have polarities. It's good
Well,
to be
yeah,
human.
I mean, it's necessary even to have both those good and bad traits within us.
Stop looking for anything more than that and just be human. Because we don't know how nostalgic we might become in the future. Okay, with that being said, he has to get out of here. Colin will be around. We live in the same city.
We're going to have him back as much as
I
he
intend
wants
to
to
come
come
back
back.
at some
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
yes.
We're gonna. I'm assuming he loves the conversation. We love his company. More time. If people don't live in this country, how can they listen to the NPR station that you're on Saturdays?
Well, because WBOY is online at WBOY.org, and when you access the website, I mean, one of the first things that you see towards the top of the screen is like this banner that you can, like, you know, hit play, and then it will essentially just kind of, you'll be able to stream our material online.
Okay.
You know,
All right.
we're not just on the radio.
Okay. Perfect. With that being said, thank you everybody for showing up. Thank you for coming in here to hear his bass playing as well. If you didn't hear
You
it,
didn't catch that in the beginning.
go ahead and rewind to the beginning. And
He's blossoming like a flower.
he did.
For what it's worth, you know,
Yeah.
for what it is.
But the point is to get out of your comfort zone and play and be expressive. And
He did not.
that.
Yeah, he didn't want to go live, but somehow I convinced him to let me push the button as he just, plucked along. And I mean, it sounds good. I'm just happy we got him out of his shell. He came back. He actually brought his instrument, and to me, that is the battle won.
Well, even just beyond that, I mean, even a lot of the questions that you guys have been asking me throughout this, I mean, some of those questions have even got me out of my comfort zone and made me think, oh man, wow, how do I even approach?
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about.
You know, once we, just come join the channel, hop in the comment section. I really encourage you to hop in the comment section with these guys
And get a different perspective.
and get a different perspective and start following some of these individuals because they're just as profound. They're not here for no reason at all. Like, these guys are deep thinkers. They're great musicians. They love music. They love talking about different various things. Is probably the reason why they're here, and they're not going to judge you. I think the best thing about this community is we're not going to judge you.
Yep.
We recognize Colin for being Colin, and we're not expecting you to be anything else. We don't want you to be anything else.
Yeah.
So if you have any insecurities, face them. This is a great place to face them because everybody here has been through some kind of crazy struggle, and we're currently going through mental health issues and crazy struggles. So when you're coming here, you're with people who are currently going through it, who have been going through it, and they know there's more waiting for them.
Yeah.
Well, one of our co-hosts, his name is Scotty Sounds, and he said he showed us a T-shirt, and the T-shirt said, God, I don't want to butcher this, but it said, "Hang in there.
It's going to get worse."
It's going to get worse."
All right, everybody.
We thank you for showing up. Go ahead and check out Colin on his radio station Saturdays at
WBOY 89.1 or WBOY.org. Saturdays 9 to 11 every single Saturday.
There you go. You got it from there. And love, bye.
See ya.
Everybody used high voices at the end. It was a, see ya, love you, bye, hi, oh, gee, oh, ha. Mickey Mouse-esque. You know what I mean? What the hell's going on here? And then that's when helium entered the room.